Hello there. So in this video I will show you how to do zoom in and zoom out like this. Also how to switch to first person and to third person by pressing just one key. Or you can also zoom into first person and zoom out to third person like this. So without further ado, let's begin then. For this project I am using simple third person template as you can see. So first let's handle third person camera zoom in and out. The way I will do the zoom is, this is the character here, and to zoom in and zoom out we need to change this value which is inside camera boom. Like if I change it to 100, then you can see it's zoomed in, and if I change it to let's say 1000, then it's zoomed out and camera is further. So the higher the value is, the more zoomed out the camera is, and lower it is, the more zoomed in it is. So let's implement this. The first thing we need is the input, and for that I will create an input action. It should be float variable, and in input mapping context it should be mouse wheel axis. Now that's done, let's implement the logic. So in the third person character, let me just move the camera up so it won't get awkward. Now in the event graph, add zoom input action. Now this variable is a float, and if I print it, then if I scroll up with mouse, then it prints 1 there, and if I scroll down, then it prints -1, and sometimes it prints -2 or +2 also if I scroll fast enough. And as I shown it before, if this value in camera boom is smaller, then it's zoom in, and if it's higher, then it's zoom out. So the logic would be this value multiplied by some number, let's say 100, is subtracted from current target arm length, and then it overwrites itself. Now if I print the value and play, then you can see it zoom in and zoom out. It does work, but you can see there are sudden big jump in and out in each scroll wheel. To make them smaller, we need to change this value, and now it's smaller but not gone. But with that we can say that this value is our zoom sensitivity. Now to make it smooth, if you have knowledge of blueprints, then you think we should use timeline and LUT this value between the previous value and new value, right? Well, you is right, but there is one caveat. You will see once we try. So let's add the timeline, and I want each zoom to take this much time. Now add these 2 points, and I want them to be linear. I will explain why later, but for now let's connect it on play from start. And I will also explain why it's on play from start instead of play, but first let's make this work. So add the LUT function, and we want this value to LUT between its current value to its newly calculated value. Now if I play, then it does something like this. It changes value 13 times. And let me change the zoom sensitivity to 100 so it's easier to calculate. And it goes from 400 to -250, which is not what we want. So the reason why this is happening is because this is a function. Like if I change the length of the timeline to 0.01 and this spin time also, then it works fine, but it goes back to snappy zoom. Now if I change it to 0.02, then it executed 3 times. So the problem is LUT function needs a constant value, or to be precise, a value or variable which don't change in each iteration of timeline loop. So what we can do here is set target arm length to a new variable before timeline and set this calculation value also in a new variable. Then feed these two variables into lar function. So let's do that then. This value should be current camera distance and this value should be your new camera distance and zoom sensitivity is 100 right now. Now in lar function let's put the variables and well don't forget to change the timeline back to point 2. Now there we go, magically it works and you can see how smooth the zoom is, and if I zoom single time then values are correct too. Also I'm not stuck with the increment of 100 or decrement. I can stop the scroll wheel whenever I want. As you can see the values here. Now let's clamp this value so it won't do this. There we go. Now in the timeline, why these are linear? Well, if I make them auto, then it looks fine in single zoom. But if I do it quickly, then here you can see how much the lag is there. The reason is in each execution it slows at start and end. But if it's linear, then it blends correctly. Now, why it's on play from start? Well, if I put it on play, then zoom works one time and after that it goes to snappy zoom because playhead is now at end position. It's same as not using timeline. So that's why it's on play from start. So each time this value can blur between them. Also comments are important and I will promote them to variable so I can easily change them whenever I want. Now the bonus part. Well, it's not important but I thought I would add it here. So if you're thinking that this variable is set from this function and we are doing the same thing here also. So why not use this variable here directly? Well, we can do that and it would work without any problem. But if we do that, then flow of execution of these two variables matter. Like if I switch the execution of these two variables, then the first zoom would be weird. Like if I zoom out, then new camera distance value is 100 instead of 400 because current camera distance is 0. But if you want this type of execution, then assign current camera distance value in begin play. So current camera distance always execute first. Or you can do it like this too. Okay, now let's switch between third person to first person. But before that, let's rename this. And I will copy and paste these two under capsule component. Now in our first person camera boom, I will change the location of this and target arm length to 20. Now to check our camera, let's activate the first person camera and deactivate third person camera. Also remember, camera boom also have this value. Don't touch that. It should be camera value. Now our camera works, but character does not move with camera. So to fix that, in character movement, simply uncheck this and check this. What this checkbox do is it moves the character to the character's controller's current rotation or desired rotation to be precise. Or in simple term, it rotates the character to where he is looking at. And now it works. You can also do the same thing by going into class default or in here, check use controller yaw. So it uses controller yaw rotation. If you don't know what yaw is, then it's just this. but I find the previous method much smoother, so I will use that. So let's switch between cameras. To switch between cameras, we need input action. It should be bool and I want it to be pressed. So if I press the key, then it registers it as a tap. Now let's switch with tap key. By default, third person camera is active, and these should be like these. Now the way I will do the zoom is, I will simply check is third person camera is active or not. The reason I'm using boolean is I have only two cameras. If I had more than two cameras, then I would have used enum or something else. But let's keep this simple. Now if it's active when tab key pressed, then activate first person camera. Else activate third person camera. Now did you remember what are the steps I used to activate first person camera? Well, first deactivate third person camera, then activate first person camera, then change these two. Also same thing here but reverse. Now there we go, it works. But there is a small bug. Let's print this value here. Now let's zoom out. Sorry, don't print this. Okay, now if I go to first person, then I scroll in to zoom in, then I go to third person by pressing tab key. Well, this is not where we left it, right? It can be fixed by doing this simple check here. Now if I zoom in, then there we go, camera is still there. Now let's seamlessly switch between third person to first person camera and vice versa by zooming in and out. The logic would be simple. There is your character, third person camera, first person camera, and there is minimum and maximum threshold of third person camera. So when players zoom in, then camera goes close, and when it reaches minimum threshold, then if players zoom in again, only then it deactivates and activates first person camera. Now there is no zoom in first person camera. If you want to know how to zoom in with first person camera, then there are links in the description of some videos that I found interesting. Now when player zooms out, then it deactivates and third person camera activates again. Simple, right? Well, let's implement this then. So let's first handle the transitioning into first person camera. So when third person camera is active, then after each zoom in or out, it checks that is camera at minimum threshold or not. If it is, then activate first person camera. And the logic to activate first person camera is this. So instead of copying it, I convert it into function and it also. Now it goes here. Now let's check it works or not. And it works. Great. Now let's implement transitioning into third person. First, let me organize it. So, if character is in first person, which is this one, then if players zoom out, which means it is less than 0, then switch to third person camera. Well, there we go. It works. Now there is one problem though, that let's say camera is here, then if I switch to first person camera through tab key, then if I zoom out, then camera is here. Instead what I want is when I zoom out from first person camera, then no matter where third person camera was, it always starts from minimum threshold. So the solution is simple. Before activating third person camera, set target arm length of third person camera boom to minimum zoom threshold. You can see that why it's a good idea to have variables rather than leaving it like this. Now if I zoom out, then go to first person, then zoom out, it starts from here. Now let me just convert them into function so it would be much cleaner. Okay, now all is done, we can zoom in or out smoothly, but based on our logic, when players zoom in, then camera zooms in and it stops at minimum threshold. Then if players zoom in again, then it goes to first person camera. But right now it goes to first person camera directly. I can prove it by increasing the zoom sensitivity to 400 and default target arm length is, let's make it 300. Now if I zoom in, it switches to first person camera. Instead I want it to stop here and then switch to first person camera if I zoom in again. So we can do a lot of shenanigans here by using different variables to check is this the second time character zoom in or not, or camera was previously at minimum threshold or not. But actually sometimes the solution is pretty simple, or in this case just changing a single variable. So first let's open Blueprint Debugger. Now focus on these two variables. When I zoom in, third person camera is active now. If I step in, then current camera distance is 300 and new camera distance is 50 now because zoom sensitivity is 400 right now. Now in this function it learns between two values, then new camera distance is 50 so it returns true and first person camera is active. So the solution would be just use current camera distance here. And now if I zoom in, then it is false and camera is at minimum distance. Now let me delete all the breakpoints. Now if I zoom in again, then it goes to first person camera. Well, it's not done yet because now if I zoom out, it goes to third person, and if I zoom out again, it goes to first person. The solution for that is simple. The thing is, this logic going into first person should work only when players zoom in, but right now it works at both times. So as I showed you at the start, that if it's greater than 0, then it's zoom in. So let's do that. And now if I repeat the steps and zoom out again, then it works as intended. Now let's make this mess readable. So I will convert it to function and it should be pure. The simple rule of function is a pure function only returns a value, but if it's a normal function, then it might change a value. And I will convert this one to and replace it here too. Now after all the comments, it looks like this. Also remember at the start of the video I showed you camera switches like this. Well, you can do it like that. There we go. So this is it. We are done with this. See ya.